directly on Penji, so you can communicate with your designer. You can go back in time to see what was done for you, and it's just a really easy way to manage and be more efficient throughout the entire design and creative process. And that's the biggest thing that we're trying to solve is the way that you received a design and the way that you talk to designers in the past. We want to completely change the way you go about in doing that. On a more fun note, I can say that the idea was actually generated on a trip to Vietnam. I've been to Vietnam twice now, and we have team members there in Vietnam. And Vietnam is a very special place to me because it's that one place in the world where I can kind of just dump all my problems.
This is Scratch Your Own Itch, the one show that delivers the conversations that we're afraid to share, but need to. This show is all about creating a life worth living. I'm Logan Tyler Nelson, and I'm your host. So, you're going to hear conversations with creators and entrepreneurs talk about what they do, their current and past traumas, how they became who they are, and what they are truly curious about. This is the show where we talk about the things we think about a lot, but need to talk about more. So my promise to you is to always give you one question to answer for yourself today to start turning your dreams into a reality. So, my curiosity question for you is, are you willing to sacrifice security so the dream inside your head of becoming an entrepreneur can actually become true? A wise man by the name of Tim Ferriss once said, "It's lonely at the top. 99% of people are convinced they are incapable of achieving great things, so they aim for mediocre. The level of competition is thus fiercest for realistic goals, paradoxically making them the most competitive. Most people will never be truly successful." And the thing is, though, the pull towards mediocrity is just strong. As David Schwartz once penned, all around you is an environment that is trying to pull you down to second-class street. Most people will never escape the pull. Much of the thinking around us is small-minded. Most people are overly concerned with beating the other guy, usually through manipulation and politics. As a result, they're left fighting for scraps with the other 99%. It doesn't have to be this way, though. A life of your deepest dreams is so right in front of you. 100%. 100% financial independence, being your own boss, traveling the world with your family, whatever. It's available if you know where to start. So if any of this resonates with you, I want you to really listen in on this interview, because this podcast is so you can feel less alone in your entrepreneurial journey. And today I'm here with Johnathan Grzybowski. He is a rogue risk-taker turned entrepreneur and national thought leader in digital marketing and branding. He is the co-founder of Penji. Johnathan is also the host of a #1 business podcast, the Blind Entrepreneur Podcast, where he helps business professionals that are temporarily blind in business to help them execute their vision. So without further ado, give a huge warm welcome to the one and only Johnathan Grzybowski.
Logan, it's an honor, and I am ready to go amped after hearing that amazing introduction and all of those quotes. If that doesn't jack you up and get you excited, I don't know what else will.
Yeah, man, I know. I'm so happy I pulled those together, and I have been writing and reflecting a lot, and this sort of life that some entrepreneurs slash artists, people that are living that lifestyle where they're not always surrounded by people. They are kind of alone, and a lot of it's being able to sacrifice the popularity and the fun for doing what they really believe in. And so,
Sure.
yeah, man. And your story, like, I want to get into that. And really, the mission of the show is to make someone feel less alone, and to also really define what it is to scratch your own itch, which to me is solving a big problem that you have with yourself or you see in the community. And by doing so, you're doing it for them and others. And so, how have you gotten to where you are today by scratching your own itch?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that it's been a lot of failure and success when success was needed the most. Um, yeah, I think looking back at my, I guess, young career of business and entrepreneurship has always been trying to find the right opportunity that made the most sense for myself and for the people around me. We started as an agency. Well, let me just start by Penji. Penji is a on-demand design membership where we offer unlimited graphic design to businesses, to startups, to agencies, to internal marketing teams, and also the print on-demand community. And we found it relatively by luck, by chance, but it turned into something so much greater than we ever anticipated. And we were an agency, I'd say, several years back, and we were doing design work and we were doing development work and just like that full service agency that I'm sure a lot of people, maybe listening have an agency, or maybe they are looking to start one. And for us, we were just, not great at it. Anytime that you can run a service-based organization and not necessarily care about the service aspect of it because you're servicing people, that's just a bad way to do business. And so for us, we created this tool in the middle of all of this, and we created this tool in order to help us manage our design projects more. Because as you get, whether you run a podcast or whether you run a business, whether you do both, there is always a need for design. There's always a need for content. You always need that form of content. So how can you get it done for you on a timely manner, but still be able to manage it all without having to go through countless emails, email chains, etc. And that's kind of like where Penji came in. We realized that after we created, we're like, holy crap, this is something that a lot of people can it'll solve a huge problem that a lot of businesses, entrepreneurs have. And so that's kind of like where we are today, growing rapidly, and there's a lot of success even along there, but there's a heck of a lot of failure as well. And so I say that's just the fundamental of how I started and how we came to where we are today.
Hey friends, so let me ask you real quick. Are you someone who's trying to get more visibility? Who's trying to be in front of the crowd? Well, if that's you, I want to let you know that first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, if you want to get on more podcasts, or ones that actually scratch your own itch, meaning maybe you have a book, or a business, or maybe you do speaking, or if you don't yet do speaking, maybe you can, and maybe you'd love to. Well, I put something together for you, and in this little giveaway, I'm going to show you how to pitch yourself or podcast, and how to actually be professional when you show up so you can be the next authority in your niche, so you can start scratching your own itch. I know what it's like to build something, create something, and then there just be crickets. No one wants that. You need to be seen. You need to be heard because you have a message to share. A message that is worthy of hearing. Podcasts nowadays, more than ever, are being consumed by people. And guess who's actually learning the knowledge that's being shared? It's podcast listeners. It gives you a license to be an authority in whatever area you really dream of being an authority in. So if this at all starts to give you a little itch to scratch, just email Logan at LoganTylerNelson.com. Again, that's Logan at LoganTylerNelson.com. Wow, yeah, like, geez, I think that it's so cool, though, that you found something that was just required. More companies need artistic design. More companies need something that stands out, and I often say this quote a lot in the show, if you listen. Only is better than best. There is no competition when you're the only person who does that kind of work, and so, like, I think Yapenji kind of capitalized on that. When you guys are very niche in that sort of like having a subscription-based business, which is really cool. And so, how did you come up with that idea, by the way? Like, or did you just kind of go, this is the only way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, we grew our agency relatively fast. Our original agency, we've had it for about 5 years, and so we created a variation of Penji while we were in the agency world, and it was just trying to find a way to streamline communication with our current clients, and trying to find a way to streamline our internal process. Because if you run an agency, or if you ever have done graphic work before ever, you know that when you're working with your freelancer, when you're working with your employee, things are sent via Slack, things are sent via email, things are sent via Facebook Messenger, or whatever form of media that you have. But there's really no streamlined communication in order for you to see what you did, say, 6 months or so ago. So maybe you design something and you have to optimize Trello, for example, or Asana to the best of your ability in order to organize all the things that were done. So if you're able to go back in time and be able to say, like, hey, we did this last Christmas. We did this card last Christmas. And we want to redesign something very similar based off of that. That's really powerful, because you know what not to do, or you know what worked for you in the past. Or maybe there's an ad, for example, that did really well, but you can't necessarily find the PSD file, and it's lost because you can't you can't track emails or whatever it may be. We found a way to centralize communication directly on Penji, so you can communicate with your designer. You can go back in time to see what was done for you, and it's just a really easy way to manage and be more efficient throughout the entire design and creative process. And that's the biggest thing that we're trying to solve is the way that you received a design and the way that you talk to designers in the past. We want to completely change the way that you go about in doing that. On a more fun note, I can say that the idea was actually generated on a trip to Vietnam. I've been to Vietnam twice now, and we have team members there in Vietnam. And Vietnam is a very special place to me, because it's that one place in the world where I can kind of just dump all my problems. I can figure out scratch my own itch, so to speak, and figure out what is going on internally with me, and then leave it all there in the country, come back to the United States as a new man. And so it started, technically, although it started months and months before that, it technically generated the idea directly in an island in Vietnam.
Wow, man. I think that it's so cool, the unfolding of it, and you just following your sort of what the universe is telling you at the time, and you're just going with it. And I want to kind of like shift gears, because I see you on all these other podcasts now, and I see you on other Facebook Lives. And how do you decide how much sort of like work you should be doing inside your business, and then work you should be doing outside of your business, where you're like sort of like promoting it and getting it out there? Because I think that there's a great a great thing that I often remind myself that you can write the best book in the world, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if no one knows about it, then it's kind of a worthless book. You can have
Mm-hmm.
the best company in the world, but if no one knows about it, then it's kind of. So what's more important to you at this moment?
I think that's a really, I mean, it's a great question, but it's a very complex, there's a complex answer to it. I think fundamentally it comes down to your systems and your processes and your procedures. Because if you don't have a good system, if you don't have a good process in order to, I would say prospect for, new podcast opportunities, or if you're not prospecting in order to get your name out there, then what are you really doing for the business? You could focus on the internal process in order to scale, but you also need to get the word out there in the meantime. So for me, I take certain periods of the day, certain periods of the week, excuse me, and I just jot down like, hey, my goal this week is to get 5 podcast opportunities. And I say that out loud to our team. We have over 30 people here. And so every single person that knows, they have an idea of what needs to be done every single day they come into work. So, and I think just being able to use that to your advantage is also really important, because using other people's strengths you can leverage that and get your name out there even further, get your businesses out there. So I'd say it's a long-winded answer, but I think what it comes down to is having the right process, procedure, and you have to be prepared in order to allocate the right time. There isn't like a 60-40 or like number, so to speak. You just kind of have to put feelers out there and say like, hey, this is what I do and this is my story. So going back to something else you might want to consider is you have to understand yourself. You have to know your story. You have to know what resonates with people. For me, I feel like, and I'm still learning, so I'm not like, good at it by any means, but I know what people are interested in. I know why, I know the stories to tell people, because that's what they get the most value out of. People don't necessarily want to hear, the success stories of like what you're doing once you're successful. They want to know how you became the person that you are today. And I wouldn't say I'm successful by any stretch of the imagination, but I can say that there are a lot of things that we are doing really, really well. And so being able to share that and be able to tell people how we did it, I think is incredibly important. And it resonates with people. So it's just a matter of like knowing yourself, finding a good story that isn't necessarily bragging about yourself, but more so helping others in order to achieve their dreams. Because the minute that you're able to help somebody else achieve their dreams and give them a nugget of information, it'll be more likely for them to react by helping you achieve yours. So if somebody's listening right now and they get a lot of value from what it is that I'm saying, there's a strong opportunity that even if your audience is of one, and it's just you interviewing me, for example, I hope that we could have a good relationship, because I'm providing value to you, and I'm also providing to an audience, even if your audience was 1 million. And so if you do it over time, right? If you talk to your audience in the span of say 10 podcasts, right? And each podcast has on average 250 people. Like the audience of 250, that audience has now grown to over 2,500 people. So now 2,500 know exactly who I am. They know exactly what I do, and they know what I stand for. And so if you just continue to do that and you're cognizant of like these podcasts, it's always great to get on the Tim Ferriss show. It's always great to get on, whatever other, the JLD, Entrepreneur on Fire. But those are like home runs, like you can't go for that one podcast in anticipation that they're going to say yes and all your problems are solved, because that's not the case at all. But if you can get on 10 to 100 other smaller podcasts, no offense, Logan, but just podcasts in general that don't have that clout, you can still make a lot of progress, if not more progress for your business, just by focusing on people that that can get value off of your story.
Yeah, and that's the thing, actually. When I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but I know for a fact that when you actually listen to a podcast that has a smaller audience, like I have one that I love to death, Mind Pump, and they also have a Facebook forum on that where I write in, and I'm not joking you, the amount of engagement inside that forum is enormous. You go on
Yeah.
these other Facebook groups like ClickFunnels and referrals and podcast junkies. I'm just making stuff up now.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But there's people will post a question and there'll be like 5 likes or like
Mm-hmm.
maybe two people commenting. And Mind Pump though has made a community where everybody on there is a super fan, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so much more important because Tim Ferriss and even Joe Rogan's podcast, if you go on there, you're like you're, even if you're going on there and you're a shark, dude,
Sure.
there's still some giant fish out there that are probably bigger than you.
Yeah.
There's whales, like that you're fighting against, and so I think it's the main point is to create the conversation and to
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation that's enlightening. So like I want to go into this kind of and let's get a conversation going.
Sure.
What do you think? Like, let's say like someone right now is like, I really want to, I want to have a business where I'm making 6 figures a year, but I also know that what I'm good at doesn't really align up with making a lot of money. What kind of advice would you give that person?
Well, I think number one, so I'm just going to use your exact example and what you gave me, because that's all I know. So I'm not nitpicking, but I just want to base off of what it is that you say. So if your first thing you ever say out loud or to somebody else is that I want to make 6 figures, I think number one, you're just going to be chasing money, and you're going to be chasing money for a really long time. I know this because that's exactly why our agency failed, is because we were chasing money. Oh, we just need that one contract. Oh, we just need that one thing in order to put us over the hump and we're good. And the fact of the matter is once you get it, you're still not going to you're not going to feel fulfilled. So what I would say, and this is just my story, is you have to find a large enough problem that you're confident in fixing, right? So I know we talked a little bit off air that you are, is it you currently are or you were an actor?
Yeah,
Were. Okay, so like if it's acting, you're really good at acting, right? What that your strengths, your weaknesses, and if even though it may not make the most amount of money, it's something that you're really passionate about, and it's something that that you can solve the problem with, then you have to be able to have the patience in order to create a proper solution in order to see that solution come to fruition. It might take a year, it might take 6 months, it might take 10 years in order to do it. But if you're constantly solving problems and less about finding the money and chasing the money, personally, I think I think your financial freedom will come much quicker by doing that. It's just like a shift of focus. You have to be able to focus on the right things that make the most sense and that move the needle forward. And it's not necessarily always about getting the next sale. It's not always about making that next transaction. The minute that I personally stopped thinking about money was the minute that I became free. Not necessarily financially free, but just mindfully free, because I'm not thinking about it as much. What I'm trying to do is think about how can we make the company stronger? How can we make the company better? How can we provide a great opportunity to the team members that are here at Penji? All of these things come to mind first, and then of course sales and everything like that is always front of mind. So it's never that I'm not thinking about sales, but I'm not thinking to myself like, oh, I have to make $100,000 or $1 million. That to me is a very toxic way of thinking. But if you can think to yourself like, here's an alternate way to think about money, but not necessarily think about 6 figures. How can I help? Let's just say your ticket item is $5,000. How can I help 12 people? How can I help 12 people with better acting? I'm just, again, using a crazy, weird example, but how can I help 12 people achieve actor freedom in order to get them the next position or in the next role for their career? And in your head that it takes 12 people to do it because your price point is 5,000. Then that's a pretty good goal to say that you're going to be making $60,000 for the year. So, I mean, I would just go the route of helping people first, because by you helping people, by you providing good content, by you providing a relatively good service that can stand a test of time and is proven, it's going to grow. It may not be, again, exponential growth, but you might be able to achieve that financial freedom or that $100,000 or $1 million that you want. You might be able to achieve it faster just by changing your philosophy and your way of thinking.
Wow. Hey, Logan Tyler Nelson here. I would so appreciate it if you took some time to hit the subscribe button. I really want to just honestly live and give. Why? Because I was told when I was young that if you're feeling down, the best way to feel better is by lifting someone up again. So in an effort to make someone feel less alone, please hit the subscribe button so the podcast has a better chance of being found and making someone feel less alone. And if you're feeling down, hey, it can help you. Know that by hitting that subscribe button, you just did someone a huge favor. So thank you for hitting that subscribe button. Oh, yeah. I have to point out real quick that you talked about how money kind of started to come in more when you stopped worrying about it, or when you started really working on your business, and maybe it didn't like the floodgates of money started falling down.
Sure.
But it I think it recenters of why you're doing what you're doing, and I want really anyone who's listening right now to really take that in, because I listen to a lot of podcasts and other people say when I stopped focusing on money, all of a sudden it started coming in. When you focus on making a difference, the dollar does come in, and I want people to really believe in that, because if you don't, your beliefs are very limited. And I know for a fact that whenever I just do good work, that to me is so more meaningful than making $100, $100,000 or whatever. It just and it's such. I mean, it's such a. It's. I think it's really hard world to live in if you're only thinking about money.
Well, can I give you the way that helped us to unlock financial? I mean, again, I don't want to use financial freedom because we're nowhere near the goals that we set ourselves out for, and we have very, very aggressive goals. But the minute that, so I'll give you a good example. We were trying to get press for every business that we've ever got into, right? Every business we ever started. And we were very, I would say, moderately successful. Maybe in the very beginning we were successful because we were much younger. I mean, I'm 29, but we were younger at the time, and very rarely did we ever get in press. The minute that you do something, you solve a large enough problem, the minute that you help other people is the minute the press and the minute that other businesses start following and finding you. So we launched a campaign called Camden Unlimited, which was a nonprofit initiative that we will soon be launching again, that helps organizations, nonprofits in particular, with all of their graphic design needs, and we offer it to them at a heavily discounted price. Now, people would say that you're crazy for coming up with this and doing this, and by no means is this like a marketing ploy in order for us to get customers and exposure. This is us just trying to set an example and trying to let other people know that you have to give back to your community in order for you to just be free. You have to continue to help people, and so we chose about 25 to 50. Nonprofits that we helped. And because we were able to help these people and give a very fair, very insanely low price, the minute that the nonprofits wanted to help us in return. And we made a point that we are never going to ask directly. We would hope that you can introduce us to other people just by us being able to help you and share your experience and give us testimonials and just like, if you like any of our stuff on Facebook, just tell us, share it with your friends. And just that simple ask, and not necessarily asking for anything in return monetarily, like money wise, and just asking like, hey, if you just like our stuff, if you like what we post on social media, just give it a like, or tag us if anybody comes to mind when they say I need a designer, or whatever it may be. The what it unlocked from just that simple little task, this simple little idea, allowed us so many strong connections. So many people were interested in what it is that we were doing. They were intrigued. We gained a group of customers that people actually wanted to talk to us about and make our product and our service better. And then from there, the way our net work worth was so much more valuable, because people genuinely had to care about who we are. And so like that's what worked really well for us. What could work well for you is something completely different, and you just need to be able to figure it out. But that's something that I would recommend is finding a way to give back. Maybe just don't even ask, but just give back. 110% fundamentally just give and never ask for anything in return, and then you'll actually see if something can come out of it.
Yeah. I mean, but at one point, when does it become? And we're running down on time, so I wanna try to be quick with this. But when does it become a point of stop being a charity case and start actually being a service?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to get a certain point in time where you have a group of customers, right? And you have to be able to ask. You have to be able to talk to them and get the feedback. And if they're not helping you by creating a better product or better service or whatever it may be, like if you just give away the service and not necessarily talk to them, and you're just giving it away and you're not getting on phone calls with them, they don't know you by name, you're just saying like, hey, I'll do you a solid. I think that could be detrimental to your business, because you still have to think about the bottom line, and you also have to be at a place where you can give back and take that risk. So it is a risk. I don't want to say it's going to solve your problems, but there needs to be a balance, right? You need to be talking to the right people. You need to be able to take on the free work that those people might be able to have the network that they can introduce you to. And I think fundamentally, the last thing is you have to ask too. You have to ask them for that share or that like or that introduction. You never want to ask. We set the goal that we fundamentally don't want to ask them for any money, but we will ask them, say, hey, could you make us an introduction to a friend if they need it? And so if you're not asking, then you're never going to receive.
I love it. And I think that I want to point out, like, a solid connection with someone, or maybe a testimonial or review, like that actually, if you don't look at it as like that's free, that is money. That is totally money, if you're very money mindset driven, because some people I know are. Like, I just know for a fact that if you post something about money within a title, there's like 15,000 likes on it, or people like, even in the online game.
I don't get that either.
Yeah, I don't get it either, but I'm very I'm just heartfelt centered, I guess, and it's hard for me to but whenever I put, for example, anything about money in my titles for my podcast, those stats skyrocket. It's It's weird. But we're living in that age right now where everything is based off of online, and so people want to learn how they can have that sort of life. But anyways, I want to go into what I call scratching the surface curiosity questions. So these are just 30 seconds or less sort of answers, and the point of it is to make someone feel less alone and learn a little bit more about you, and then where more people can find you. And we already plugged your podcast in the very beginning, so
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully someone didn't just listen to that part. Go, he's number one. Let me switch over to that one, and didn't listen to this one. But um, any,
Hmm.
anyways, I'll go to the first question, which is if you could sit on a park bench with anyone for an hour, who would it be and why?
I would say I would talk to my past self, um, and let them know the things that you need to work on so you don't have to make all the same mistakes that you did in the past. That would probably be the first bet. If you're looking for like an answer, like an actual person.
No, dude, that works, man. I love
Okay.
that. I don't want anything else. That's amazing. That's perfect. Just because it's very important for anyone to go. Yeah, I would love to talk to myself 5 minutes, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I love that. How do you like to consume content? Blogs, podcasts, books, audiobooks,
Um,
films.
yeah. So I would say anything that is curated is something that I always stress to consume. So this podcast, you did your due diligence to make sure that I'm not some schmuck that just isn't BSing everybody. You let me on your podcast because again you curated, you did your research, etc. So that's important. When it comes to just consuming content, I find it very hard to consume just like basic blogs. I usually use any form of video content or audio content because, again, if it's going through audio, it's curated. If it's going through video, it was edited. Most blogs nowadays are a little bit harder to read because anybody could write an article about the 5, 10, 20 reasons why. But does that person really know what they're talking about? And that's up for debate. But when it comes to podcasts or when it comes to a YouTube, you kind of have their sub account and you have a general idea that they know what they're talking about.
Dude, solid answer. I've never gotten an answer like that, so I love that. It's a good point. I think I love podcasts because of just the rawness.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the rawness, and also you can be eating and that sort of like mindfulness of being in your food and also being with someone else and having that conversation
Sure.
and then being able to talk about it later with someone that just connects all the dots, because
Absolutely.
there's that sort of like, yeah, you're taking in information, but you're also outputting it. Give us a glimpse of your morning routine, and just realize that anybody that listens to this probably knows for a fact this isn't his morning routine every day, but this is what he shoots for.
Yeah, so I can say I used to suck at morning routines. I had a really hard time for a really long time to make it perfect. But I'm starting to wake up earlier every single day. And so right now it's 7 a.m., which isn't like, crazy early. But for me, it's pretty early because I like to optimize my time at night. But 7 a.m. is when I normally wake up. And then I kind of just like meditate. And again, this is like such a cookie cutter answer because I'm sure everybody likes to, it's like that thing on social media. You only show people what you actually, show them what you want to show. But this is actually a real life thing. I try to wake up at 7. I try to meditate using Headspace. It's an app that I really love. And then I go to the gym in the morning, and I'd say about like that usually takes about 8 to 8:30. And so then I shower. I usually eat for the second time. I usually have something really light before the gym and eat like an actual breakfast. Start working somewhere around 9. The rest of the team doesn't come in at 10. Then I go from 10 to 6, 10 to 7, 6:30, somewhere around that. And then I kind of just take a couple of hours, like an hour or two just for myself, doing something, fun, maybe watching something that's like relatively cool on YouTube. And then I look at my notes. I have this really cheesy management overview document that I made, and I wish I could send it out, but it would literally give nobody any value other than myself because I made it for myself. But I review the sheet at the end of the day in order to prepare myself for the next. And I probably should look at this on a weekly basis and in order to know everything that's happening on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But I try to be as prepared as I possibly can and do my research, ahead of time. And that's kind of like how I know you just said the morning, but that's my whole day. I'm very systematic. I'm very robotic, as you could probably tell by my answer.
No, I love it. I'm the same way, man. When there's certainty in someone's day, it allows you to really dig deep on whatever you're working on. Really,
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
so I think it's I there's a quote that I recently read that I just keep reminding myself. It's stuck in my brain, man. The man in the room with the most certainty is the most powerful man in the room usually. So,
Mm-hmm. I like that.
yeah, right. The next thing I would love for you to recommend us is a podcast that you're really, really loving lately.
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I'd say like I honestly haven't listened to a podcast in a little bit of time. It's just more so like short stories of like, if that makes sense. Like I'd say maybe like a crime one is something that I can't even remember the name of it at this point in time, but this podcast, of course. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't listened to, like, I haven't felt passionately about a really good podcast in a while. And that's kind of a shame because I probably should be actively finding more, but I've been so into the game of working in the business, or excuse me, on the business and in the business, that I haven't necessarily had time to explore the podcast world. I can say the one thing that I've been obsessed with is watching esports and learning about esports. It's not podcast related, but just watching people like Ninja is and how their content is so successful is really intriguing to me. So I'm just trying to study that at this moment. And this has no value whatsoever to my business, but I still think is really cool just how they're able to monetize off of literally playing video games.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. It really gives definition to doing what you love.
Sure,
These guys.
absolutely.
So, just the last two questions is. What is just one place specifically, that one go-to place that people can find you?
Yeah, Penji.co. Penji.co, www.penji.co, penji.co. That is the one place. If you feel like there is some value here, if you like what I believe in as a human being, I'd love for you to just reciprocate by sharing Penji with a friend or going on to Penji and be able to become a member of Penji yourself. Whatever is good for you, you decide that, but that is the one place that you should check out.
Awesome. Sick, Johnathan. And the last question I'd love to ask is, I think that often a lot of us get stuck because we feel like we know all the answers, but we're not really asking ourselves the right quality questions. And so I'd love for you to leave the listener with a sort of self-inquisitive question they can ask themselves throughout the day, and maybe set a timer even there in their phone, like a reminder, like alert every 2 hours. When this alert goes off, they can now have this question pop up in their head, and it'll hopefully move them forward.
Sure. So I'll give you exactly what I do, and I'll read it verbatim. So I have a Slack bot that reminds me every single day at 9 o'clock, and the first thing it tells me is to make an impact. The second thing is create something remarkable, and the third thing is be more positive. Those are things that work really well for me, and that happens every day at 9 o'clock. So every day I look at it, every day I see it, I don't necessarily look at it every single day. But there are days where the notification pops up that I do spend a little bit more time on it than others, that I have that subtle reminder. So that's a real life example. I literally read it right off of my Slack channel that I have up right in front of me. So yeah, I that's what I have. So I can't necessarily tell you what you should have, but that's something, that constant reminder helps me.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, I love it. It's not really exactly questions, but it's a great reminder of like,
Yeah.
I recently talked about personal philosophy and how someone, actually I talked about this on LinkedIn, someone should develop their personal philosophy, and mine is to always be compassionate, creative, and curious. And I think
Yep.
when, Gandhi had a personal philosophy, you have a personal philosophy, Mother Teresa has a personal philosophy. But hey, I just want to say, Johnathan, thank you so much for coming on. I want to talk to
From
you for another 14 hours. You're awesome, dude. I love what Penji's doing, and yeah, I don't feel like this is the last time we're gonna be talking for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can clip that last part where you put Mother Teresa, Gandhi, and my name all in one sentence, and pass that around to all of my ex-girlfriends, I think no, I'm just kidding. No, Logan, I really appreciate it, man. You're an awesome dude. I love watching your content. I've been looking at your videos for some time now, and I think you're doing some really cool stuff. So kudos to you, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, dude, that means the world to me. Well, gosh, thank you. Well, I guess we'll end it there, and we'll talk to each other on the other side.
All right, man. See ya.
There'll be girls across the nation that'll eat this up. Babe, I know that it's your soul, but could you bottle it up? Get down to the heart of it. No, it's my heart. Your shit out of your luck. Don't make me tell you again. Woo! Love, love, love. Hey. Love, 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 love.
Oh, wow. You made it to the very end of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Scratch Your Own Itch with your host, Logan Tyler Nelson. To make it to the end, gosh, that doesn't happen very much nowadays. I mean, especially with the constant distraction. So, I appreciate all of the efforts that you just took out of your day to make it to the end. And if you hit that subscribe button and leave a review, you would have no idea what that would mean to me. So thank you so much for taking the time to hit that subscribe button. And if you leave a review, check it out. Just screenshot it, send it to me, and I'd love to host your review out on the show. But don't ever forget, like I say, you matter and you're enough.
Love is the main reason for how all this happened. Love for all my fans, love for all the shows. Got love for all my memories, no matter where I go. Even if I'm out to nothing, I know there's always something. It's not a fitness test, but it'll always